tonight.
She will have a chance to make her case to be a worthy successor and to become the 9th member of the Supreme Court of the United States.
The confirmation hearing of Amy Coney Barrett kicks off. We have the latest from inside the Senate and reaction to what both senators and Judge Barrett had to say. Plus, the coronavirus and the election, how the pandemic is playing out on the campaign trail, and a warning from a former KKK member, why he says the internet is the biggest roadblock in the fight against racism. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The push to confirm Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the stakes could not be higher. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder. The divided Senate Judiciary Committee kicked off confirmation hearings for Judge Barrett today. With Barrett as President Trump's pick to replace the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, this is expected to be a contentious week. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener is following the process and joins us now with tonight's top story. Tara?
Jenna, Democrats call Barrett's nomination an election season power grab. Republicans, meanwhile, defend the process, insisting there is nothing unconstitutional about confirming a new justice so close to the election.
Outside and inside the Supreme Court on day one of hearings.
Yes, Judge. I think this hearing is a sham.
With Democrats vowing to slow the confirmation process of Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
When the actual vote occurs in committee and on the floor, Democrats will not supply the quorum.
Republicans push ahead.
My Democratic colleagues will say this has never been done, and they're right in this regard. Nobody's, I think, has ever been confirmed in an election year past July. All I can say is that I feel that we're doing this constitutionally.
Barrett, who sat silent and behind a mask during opening statements, is a 48-year-old mother of 7, a devout pro-life Catholic, and a favorite among conservatives.
On any measure, Judge Barrett's credentials are impeccable.
But a target of the left.
President Trump has indicated he'd be perfectly happy to have a close election decided by a 6-3 conservative majority Supreme Court rather than by the votes of the American people.
The judge's faith under fire during previous confirmation hearings for Circuit Court Judge.
The dogma lives loudly within you.
Clearly still at issue.
I and my colleagues will focus, Judge Barrett, on your legal writings, your opinions, your articles, your speeches as a law professor and judge. And I think when we do that, we will conclude the ways in which you may serve as a justice will do irreparable harm.
We don't have religious tests. This committee isn't in the business of deciding whether the dogma lives too loudly within someone.
So far, however, Democrats are focused on the upcoming court case on the Affordable Care Act, giving example after example of people who've benefited from it.
The stakes are extraordinarily high for the American people, both in the short term and for decades to come.
Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse agreed with other members of his party, saying the confirmation of the judge is an attack against Obamacare.
The big secretive influences behind this unseemly rush see this nominee as a judicial torpedo they are firing at the ACA.
This afternoon, Barrett took center stage, talking about family, faith, and how her judicial philosophy mirrors that of the late Justice Antonin Scalia.
Justice Scalia taught me more than just law. He was devoted to his family, resolute in his beliefs, and fearless of criticism. And as I embarked on my own legal career, I resolved to maintain that same perspective.
Now the hearings are happening with voting already underway in many states. And as the country grapples with the pandemic, the hearings will resume in the morning. Jenna.
All right. Thank you, Tara. And before Judge Amy Coney Barrett's hearing, several people who worked alongside her talked about what she's like behind the scenes. Paul Strand has that story.
This webinar was organized to speak on behalf of Amy Coney Barrett.
What distinguishes Judge Barrett is her extraordinary goodness, her humility, her integrity, her open-mindedness, her collegiality. As a colleague of hers for the past 15 years at the University of Notre Dame, I couldn't have hoped to have a more generous colleague, a more kind presence in the law school.
I had this picture in my mind, it turns out rightly, of Judge Barrett as a kind of superwoman. And there's always that chance when you get to be up close, in person, day in and day out through the grind of life and work and everything else, you might see something behind the scenes that you don't like. I am pleased to report that that could not be further from my experience in Judge Barrett's chambers.
This idea that Professor Barrett is somehow handicapped by her family size or her commitments, it just shows that I don't think these people who are saying that have ever met someone who is practiced at the act of radical love the way that Professor Barrett is, because radical love makes you a bigger person. It expands your heart. It doesn't constrict it.
One time, one of my co-clerks hurt his ankle playing basketball, and he was hopping around chambers. And all of a sudden, Judge Barrett disappeared for 15 minutes after she saw him and came back with a pair of crutches.
These friends are concerned how harsh this week's hearings might be, but are confident she'll handle it just fine.
If past is prologue, what we can expect to see is the same type of grace under fire and the patience and the absolute poise and fortitude that we saw at her 2017 confirmation hearings.
Democrats who hope to knock Amy Coney Barrett off her game need to look back to when she stood before the same committee 3 years ago and under vicious attacks never lost her grace and poise. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Capitol Hill.
All right, thank you, Paul. And joining us now is veteran journalist Ray Suarez. Ray, it's good to have you this evening. So what did you make of today's hearing and opening statements? Is there anything that struck you?
It was fascinating how senator after senator during the Republican time for questioning zeroed in on on Democratic critiques of Amy Barrett's faith, except when it came time for the Democrats to do their questioning, they never mentioned it. Now, that dogma lives large within you quote from Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, I'm sure she regrets ever having said it because she's going to hear it another couple of hundred times before these hearings are over. The game plan for both sides was clear from the beginning of today's proceedings. Again and again, Republicans returned to attacks on Judge Barrett's Catholic faith. And again, the Democrats did not take the bait. They did not go there. They went to the perils of taking down the ACA. And they reminded their colleagues and they reminded the audience at home watching that there is a court case involving the Affordable Care Act right after Election Day, by which time Judge Amy Coney Barrett may be seated as a justice of the Supreme Court.
Right. We saw the pictures they had of constituents and some very heartbreaking stories. Ray, what did you think of that strategy on the Democrats' part? Was it effective?
Well, I think if you're already looking beyond Election Day, and, you know, some of the senators, the Democratic senators, when they came out of the hearings for the day, gave no evidence that they were going to do what their minority leader Chuck Schumer suggested and deny the Republicans a quorum, deny them the ability to move ahead with the nomination and the floor vote. So it is not clear that they're going to try a parliamentary dodge. What they may be trying to do is just make it impossible to take down the ACA in the court of public opinion and set up a confrontation in the Supreme Court over that issue once the election is out of the way. As far as the religious faith, I think that it'll be unlikely that the Democrats go there. They may surprise me, but I think it's unlikely that they're going to make much of an issue of Judge Barrett's membership in a faith-based group outside of the church.
Yeah, we did see them, you know, get burned on that dogma quote last time around. Republicans, they did seem to focus on the constitutionality of this process. 29 times there have been Supreme Court vacancies in an election year, and all 29 of those times presidents have nominated someone. Ray, that point was made by more than one senator. Just about 30 seconds, maybe a final thought.
And Lindsey Graham conceded that none this close to Election Day. Tomorrow will be 3 weeks till Election Day. It is rare to see something as of great consequence as a Supreme Court nomination being rushed through the process in this way, when a lot of those senators would rather be out campaigning for their national ticket.
All right, Race Wars, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much. And we will have live coverage of the hearing again tomorrow on the CBN News Channel. Things get going at 9 a.m. Coming up, the pandemic and the presidential election, how the coronavirus is affecting the campaign trail.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
President Trump is returning to the campaign trail after getting the all clear from his doctors. And while he's still recovering from the coronavirus, his physician says he's no longer contagious. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us now. Ben, no doubt the president is itching to get back on the campaign trail.
Yeah, Jenny, you're right. No doubt President Trump is trying to make up for lost time after being sidelined by the virus. With 22 days left until the election, President Trump says he plans to campaign nationwide this week.
I've been tested totally negative.
White House doctor Sean Conley said President Trump is no longer considered contagious.
I'm feeling great. I don't know about you. How's everyone feeling?
Over the weekend, Trump addressed supporters on the North Lawn for the first time since his positive test. It's there he announced campaign plans this week, starting in Florida.
It looks like I'm immune for, I don't know, maybe a long time, or maybe a short time. It could be a lifetime. Nobody really knows, but I'm immune.
Trump's campaign is reportedly launching a new multi-million-dollar advertising campaign geared towards seniors, which could begin running in battleground states this week.
Hello, Toledo.
Former Vice President Joe Biden in Ohio today with hopes to win a state Democrats lost in 2016.
But the times are hard. Unemployment is way up due to the pandemic and the terrible way in which it's been handled. The economic outlook remains uncertain. Across Ohio and the country, folks are worried about making the next mortgage payment or the rent payment.
An ABC News Washington Post poll shows the Democratic hopeful holding a 17-point lead over Trump in trust to handle the pandemic. Biden calls the president's return to the campaign trail reckless.
His reckless personal conduct since his diagnosis, the destabilizing effect it's having on our government is unconscionable. He didn't take the necessary precautions to protect himself or others. And the longer Donald Trump is president, the more reckless he gets.
Trump fired back on Twitter, writing, "Remember, I wouldn't be president now had Obama and Biden properly done their job. The fact is, they were terrible." Now, President Trump has a campaign stop in Pennsylvania tomorrow and Iowa on Wednesday. The White House has not released his schedule for the rest of the week, but we do expect him to continue campaigning through the weekend. Jenna?
All right, Ben Kennedy, thank you. Well, the Platinum Plan, that is what President Trump is calling his new strategy for empowering Black Americans. It includes the creation of 3 million jobs for the Black community and 500,000 Black-owned businesses. Charlene Aaron has the details.
This Platinum Plan commits $500 billion to inner city areas to create a new era of prosperity and close the wealth gap in Black communities. President Trump pitching the plan recently in Atlanta.
And I'm here today to announce a brand new plan to deliver more opportunity, more security, more fairness, and more prosperity to Black communities. We call it the Platinum Plan. Platinum Plan. And that's a contract with Black Americans, and it's going to be something that people talk about for a long time to come.
Georgia small business owner Bruce Lavelle, who also heads the President's Diversity Coalition, says he was overcome with emotion as he heard details of the plan.
I was just choked up because never in my life have I seen a president that is like, this is real stuff here. This is real meat.
California GOP congressional candidate Joe Collins, also in attendance, applauds the move.
I was really impressed. I was really surprised because I've never seen an agenda for the Black community like I've seen this president lay out before. And I look forward to this economic improvement. I'm telling you, the inner cities need it, but we also need to vote for people who want to see us do better instead of voting for our comfortability.
It comes at a time when America's wealth gap between whites and Blacks remains substantial. In 2019, the typical white family had an approximate net worth of $188,200. Compare that to $24,100 for Black families. Plus, about 46% of white families own their own home, compared to 17% of Black families. The president promises over the next 4 years his administration will improve those numbers by creating 3 million jobs for the Black community, 500,000 Black-owned businesses, while increasing homeownership opportunities and providing access to better education and higher policing standards.
And this is a tremendous, tremendous boost for, as I say, the underserved communities across this great nation, you know, from California to New York to Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee. And this is a great, great way to spur growth in a lot of our communities. It's been, honestly, Charlene, left behind.
Touting his accomplishments, such as historically low unemployment and prison reform, the president argues that Democrats have taken African American voters for granted.
They made you big promises before every election. And then the moment they got to Washington, they abandoned you and they sold you out. The Democrat Party used you and they lied to you every single time. You know it better than anybody else knows it.
In 2016, the president received just 8% of the Black vote. And a recent Washington Post ABC News poll found Black voters heavily favor Joe Biden over Trump 88 to 9%. Lavelle says it's time for Blacks to seriously consider what Trump has to offer.
Take a look around you and ask yourself, do you like your roads? Do you like your schools? Do you like everything around you? And I think it was fair to ask, well, if the answer is no, then let's try it this way. Don't get caught up in the emotions. Pay attention to the numbers.
He admits it's a tough sell, considering the hostility and division in today's political climate.
There's only a handful of courageous, crazy people like me that actually go out on national stage and talk about it because of the fear of the cancel culture. It's very divisive and it's very aggressive towards anything that interrupts or disturbs, watch this, the quote, pay-to-play establishment.
Yet Lavelle is hopeful the election results will prove the polls wrong.
I see it in the high teens, maybe low 20s.
To further woo Black voters, the president's plan also includes a proposal to make Juneteenth, the day African Americans mark the end of slavery in the U.S., a federal holiday. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. And up next, a warning against the dangers of the web. A former KKK member on how the internet promotes racism and how the church should respond.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Political division, activist movements, and anger, both face-to-face and on social media. Today's society often seems filled with hate, and in some cases, that hate has led to violence. A former KKK member turned Christian leader spoke with John Jessup about what the church must do to confront hate.
I heard lots of sermons. I went to Sunday school regularly. I even made a profession of faith when I was 13 years old.
Listening to Tom Terrence, it's hard to imagine the soft-spoken preacher once served time in prison and survived 4 gunshot wounds in an FBI shootout before landing a 30-year sentence for planting a bomb at the home of the civil rights leader in 1968.
I hated black people, I hated Jews, I hated liberals, and on and on.
That hatred eventually drew him to the Ku Klux Klan.
My school had been selected for desegregation, and I became very angry about it.
In prison, Tom began a search for truth and deeper meaning that ultimately led him to the Bible. He became a Christian and acknowledged his sordid past.
I certainly deserved to die. I had deserved to go to hell for my sins. But in His great mercy, God spared my life.
Tom's faith grew with the help of prominent Christians like Billy Graham and Chuck Colson, founder of Prison Fellowship. He abandoned his racist ideology, and after an unexpected early prison release, Tom saw an amazing turnaround, eventually co-pastoring a multi-ethnic church in Washington, D.C., and leading a global ministry devoted to making Christian disciples.
It's not impossible for people who hold some basic Christian beliefs to embrace this kind of extremist narrative that I did.
Now, some 50 years later, Tom sees another cultural collision facing America. He reveals similarities between then and now in his new book, Consumed by Hate, Redeemed by Love.
I saw all of this as a kind of war, fighting for God and country.
A viewpoint still evident today.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
He points to April's deadly shooting at a California synagogue as an example of white nationalism growing on the internet and how it's worked its way onto college campuses and even inside some churches.
A young man raised in a Presbyterian church, Orthodox Presbyterian church, I should say, fell into this type of thinking and put them together, and then went and shot up a synagogue.
He calls on churches to confront this evil and believes the key to change is at the core of true Christian values.
Just teach the Bible. Teach what Jesus taught about loving God with all your heart, and soul and mind and strength, and loving your neighbor. All the different races and ethnicities and political perspectives. We're called to love one another.
A message and a calling, he says, is more urgent now than ever. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, John. Still ahead, when COVID changed their wedding plans, this couple got creative. The unique place they said I do. You're watching CBN's Faith Nation.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Finally tonight, for many couples, a wedding is a way to bring their families together to celebrate. For one California couple, though, when COVID changed their wedding plans for a big wedding, they made it a priority to make sure the bride's grandma could be a part of their special day. So they decided to hold their ceremony at her nursing home.
Had the epiphany of, well, what really matters here? So we asked the facility if we could get married in the parking lot because her window faces the parking lot. And of course, we got so much more.
And forget the parking lot. The nursing home offered the couple their outdoor courtyard instead of the parking lot. And they even allowed some socially distanced guests to attend their big day. And we will leave it on that note this evening. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.